western England, but for most of England and Wales and much of eastern Scotland, it's going to be a dry and a bright day and feeling a bit warmer than today as well. Maybe 20, possibly 21 across the southeast and generally into the high teens for many locations. So as I said, feeling a little warmer during tomorrow. Still a few showers and if anything turning wetter through the evening across western Scotland, perhaps a bit more rain heading into Northern Ireland as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning too. Sunday, again, a bit of a mishmash. There will be a lot of cloud around, certainly western areas, and it's here where there will at times be some showers, certainly west coast of Wales, northwest England could be a little glum, more showers in the northwest. But again, large parts of the Midlands, eastern and southern England will be dry and fine on Sunday. And with a bit more sunshine, we could see a bit more warmth in the southeast, maybe 24 Celsius. For most places, though, we're again going to be in the high teens at best on Sunday.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's writer Christine Hamilton and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's just after 4 o'clock. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister insists he won't block names in Sue Gray's report into Downing Street lockdown parties. Boris Johnson says he's looking forward to seeing the contents in which senior figures involved are expected to be named. He's vowed to shake up Number 10 over the COVID-breaching gatherings. It's understood those impacted will be contacted and given a chance to respond before publication. Brexit Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg doesn't think these are resigning matters and that people make mistakes.
The rules were as they were, But looking back at it, and I think this is a very important part for the inquiry to play, we need to think whether those laws that stop people comforting the dying were ever right. And I hope the inquiry will look at that in case we ever have another pandemic. How proportionate were the rules and how far should the state go in controlling what people do?
The Prime Minister says he understands the importance of tackling obesity in the UK, particularly the pressure it puts on the NHS. Celebrity chef Jamie Oliver's been leading a protest at Downing Street over the delay in new junk food laws. An overhaul to buy one, get one free promotions in supermarkets was due to go ahead this year, but it's been pushed back to October 2023. Tesco and Sainsbury's say they're committed to the original government deadlines. But Boris Johnson says consumers need offers in these tough times.
There are some things at the moment where we think they make very little difference to obesity, and they can affect people's weekly outgoings, people's budgets. And at this particular time, if people can save on their food bills with some offers, then I think we've just got to be flexible whilst continuing to tackle obesity.
Well, Jamie Oliver says it's time for change.
This is fundamental, and it's for all your people listening. It's not about one thing here and one thing there. It's a bit annoying. Like, it's as profound as the smoking ban. It saves lives. It's about making young people do better, live longer, and be more productive.
11 new cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in the UK, taking the total here to 20. The Health Secretary has said he's updated G7 health ministers on what's known about the spread of the virus. Sajid Javid says most cases are mild and that the UK has secured vaccines effective against the disease. Monkeypox is usually found in West Africa, which is why outbreaks across the rest of the world have caused alarm. Ukraine's Azov regiment says they've been issued a military command to stop defending the city of Mariupol. The volunteer brigade, affiliated with the far right, says civilians and heavily wounded defenders have been evacuated from the city's Azovstal steel plant and that dead bodies are still being removed. Moscow reports almost 2,000 Ukrainian fighters have now surrendered. Some of them have arrived in a Russian-controlled town near Donetsk. The Chancellor and his wife have made the Sunday Times rich list for the first time as Russian billionaires tumble down the rankings. Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy have been ranked at 222 on the list, with their joint £730 million fortune. The couple's finances have come under scrutiny in recent months. It was estimated Miss Murthy's non-dom status could have saved her £20 million in taxes. 8 new cities have been created as part of the celebrations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee taking place in 2 weeks. The Cabinet Office announced the capital of the Falkland Islands, Stanley, is one of them, alongside Douglas on the Isle of Man, Bangor in Northern Ireland, Dunfermline in Scotland, Wrexham in Wales and Colchester, Doncaster and Milton Keynes in England. Brexit Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg says the new city status has been awarded on merit and not on size. Events are taking place up and down the country for World Bee Day today. According to Friends of the Earth, 35 species of UK bees are under threat of extinction. GB News reporter Jeff Moody met up with apiarist Paul Andrews. He told us some plants, fruits and vegetables will disappear from our shelves if more isn't done to protect bees.
1 in 3 mouthful of foods that we eat depends on pollination, and bees are the principal pollinator.
So, quite literally, we would have no food?
You would have a very much reduced variety of food. You still have the wind to pollinate grain crops, but other than that, apples, tomatoes, fruits, all that type of thing would be gone.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Nana Akua.
So good afternoon. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I just want to get this off my chest. I was right. Black Lives Matter is a scam. Now, when they first emerged, I was pretty much the only person of colour saying openly in the media that the phrase itself, Black Lives Matter, comes across as racist. When I challenged some usually perfectly decent people who are coming out in support for them and suggested that if you have to use a phrase at all, it should be all lives matter, as the other is not inclusive and creates the very apartheid it's trying to avoid, this is what I had to put up with.
Salma, it's very hard to argue against those three words, all lives matter, but I notice that every time Nana says it, you get cross.
Yes, because what the statement, all lives matter, does is it silences the voices of Black people who are trying to say, look, there is a very specific problem. And you saying, well, my life matters as well, and I could one day die, absolutely detracts from us trying to deal with systemic racism. And it has been used as a tool to silence Black communities, to silence their voices, and to say, actually, you know what? You don't really have anything to talk about.
Well, I mean, if you could just allow me to get a word in edgeways and stop silencing me by talking so much, I might have been able to speak for myself. I mean, we're on the same show, right? The poor Black person. Black people telling me off, saying because I'm Black I should support them, calling me a damn traitor because I wasn't doing what Black people are meant to. Basically, I should form an allegiance with them because we are all the same colour, which is actually the very definition of racism. I prefer to judge people on the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. I wonder which well-known person said that. Well, it turns out that Patrisse Cullors, the former leader of the Black Lives Matter movement, has pocketed vast amounts of cash. She admitted that the charity was not equipped to handle the $90 million donated, money that she called white guilt money, donated after the murder of George Floyd. She argues mistakes made with the funds are now being weaponised against her. Really? Documents show that she used charity funds to pay her friends and family large sums for various so-called consulting services, as well as a charter private flight. I mean, the list just goes on. And what about the people who were killed during the Black Lives Matter protests in America? Mostly Black people killing Black people. Sorry, folks, but those are the facts. Look, unless you tell me I'm a different colour, to be honest, I look out of my eyes so I don't see it. It's like being in a dream. When do you ever see yourself? If colour determines how you make your judgments, then more fool you. A lot of people viewed Black Lives Matter as a well-intended organisation, looking out for the well-being of people of colour, trying to redress the balance. I, on the other hand, saw it as a dangerous, passive-aggressive, far-left Marxist organisation that saw no problem with castigating and being openly abusive to those who didn't follow their rhetoric, as in their eyes, they held the moral high ground. I'm afraid, if you subscribe to this rhetoric, you've been had. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. On Friday Focus at 5 o'clock, we'll take a look at the ongoing cladding crisis. Almost 5 years since the Glenford disaster, thousands of people across the UK are still trapped in unsafe homes as the cladding crisis sees sales plummet. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? Police officers are reportedly investigating serious crimes, including murders and rapes from home. New hybrid working policies brought in by the pandemic are being used across the country, including in areas where some of the nation's highest crime rates exist. But critics of the plan say it's baffling that officers are working from home, saying it would inhibit their ability to scrutinise leads and share ideas with colleagues. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? Then it's here, monkeypox. Should we be scared? With the number of cases in the UK rising to 20, what is the situation and its cause? Is it a cause for concern? I'll be joined by an NHS doctor to explain. All of that on the way in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or why not send me that tweet at GBNews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome to my fabulous panel, writer Christine Hamilton and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Right, so first I want to talk about this whole Black Lives Matter. David, thank you so much for coming in. It's lovely to have you on board.
That's a joy.
Yeah, well, don't feel nervous at all. I don't bite, not without a good reason.
Not on Fridays, anyway.
Yeah, I'm too busy. I'm hungry later on. Listen, David, I want to ask you then, what do you think? Black Lives Matter. What was your view of it initially? And were you right? And what do you think?
Well, I mean, I was always sceptical, but for me, the money issue that's come to light is just really a kind of byproduct of it all. I mean, what it was is a classic social Marxist group, and they always give themselves a very friendly sounding title that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Does it?
Stop the war sounds reasonable. Insulate Britain sounds reasonable. Black Lives Matter sounds reasonable.
Sounds
racist. But on the face of it sounds reasonable. But underneath it is actually a very vicious, very left-wing policy platform that's largely about deconstructing the society we live in. And, you know, I mean, Black Lives Matter, for example, had a very anti-family policy, which nobody wanted to talk about at the time, but it was, you know, and that's the problem with these organisations. You know, they're going under really kind of a falsely friendly face.
And initially, did you feel an allegiance to sort of be part of this thing at the start? Did it?
Not at all. No, not at all. I mean, especially once they started pulling down statues and telling us that we're all institutionally racist and all the rest of it. I mean, you know, racism exists.
Yes,
I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it. I have an adopted sister. We grew up in Norfolk, which was virtually all white at the time, and I certainly saw her experience racism. She was half Asian, so it was, you know, it's nasty. But to say that it's systemic and that everybody is racist and that they don't know they're racist is madness.
I think it's slightly, as well, when they start talking about systemic and structural racism, I think it slightly allows people to go under the guise of that, instead of being accountable for their own individual behaviour. So if somebody is individually racist to me, they'll go, well, it's the system. That's why, no, it's you specifically. So then when, you know, for example, a police force, somebody within a force does something that is really out of order, they then go, oh, the force is systemically racist. No, it's not. It's the individual who behaved in that way that's racist and needs to be dealt with individually. And when you deconstruct it and take a person out and single them out for their behaviour, that's when it works, not when it's in a structure. Christine?
Yes, well, when Black Lives Matter started, there were a load of incredibly gullible middle-class idiots, frankly, useful, Marxist, useful idiots.
They haven't gone away.
They were completely taken in by it, and there they all were. I'm talking about, you know, the white middle class. There they all were, salving their conscience, thinking if I demonstrate on this, that and the other, you know, I'll prove that I'm not racist. And people avalanche money in there after George Floyd. It was already coming in anyway because of other incidents in America, but the money avalanched in, and they were completely ill-equipped. They had no idea what to do with it. And instead of setting up, they must have seen it coming, instead of setting up a proper structure, I think they had 3 people on the board. That is not enough to deal with millions of pounds. And they've spent, Patrice herself, spent $73,000 chartering a private jet.
Yep.
Now, what's that all about? And Black Lives Matter appears to have brought 5 houses since 2020. And as you said, she's given money, lots of money, to her brother and to the father of her child. You know, I mean, it stinks. She, of course, doesn't look at herself and her organisation. She blames the right-wing media.
Well, yes, of course.
And accounting is apparently a racist tyranny.
Well, that was
being accountable.
Well, of course,
for heaven's sake.
Well, the money was white guilt money, of course.
White guilt money. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the corporations which were donating money and making such a fuss about it are still run by white men. And
well, that's the point. Isn't it? That's the point of it. It's hypocrisy. It's all very well if they really care about Black lives. First of all, then they should be. If they believe their structure doesn't facilitate enough people of colour in there, then they should create a structure that does. If that's what they think. But I always say, take the best person for the job, irrespective of colour, and stop seeing colour would be the ideal, really.
Of course, but to go back to the big companies, it was very publicly they made this donation, and they thought this is really wonderful. It was wonderful PR for them, and some of them gave huge amounts of money to Black Lives Matter, and they didn't give a thought to where was that money going. Yeah. They just gave the money because that made them feel good, it made them look good. They didn't care where it was going, and it wasn't their money after all. It was consumers' money and shareholders' money.
Well, so were you taken?
But yes, of course, people.
Were you taken in by it at all at the beginning?
No, absolutely not at all. No, don't forget who I'm married to.
No, I know.
He was ranting away straight away after the beginning. I thought, calm down. No, I mean, I wasn't. No.
But I took so much flack from people, black people in particular, calling me a traitor, calling me this, calling me that, and some of my friends didn't want to talk to me because I didn't think the same way. Even my daughter, I had to have a word with her and say I'm sorry, but I'm not. It's just because I just believe that if it was meant to help people of colour, all lives matter means that we're levelling the playing field for everyone. To me, that is a nice. If you have to say something, if you say all Black Lives Matter, and then you have to explain, oh no, I don't mean that you're not included or you, then you've got to realise there's a problem.
You've got the wrong slogan. But of course, the other thing which they I can't remember whether they created it or they certainly owned it, was taking the knee.
Oh, well, yeah.
I can't remember where that very first came from, but, we had world leaders all over the place taking the knee and adopting it. Incredibly well. He may have his comeuppance. But, Nana, I think you were incredibly brave. I hadn't seen that clip before from the Jeremy Vine show. I think to come out publicly was a very brave thing to do. I mean, typical of you, but equally brave.
Thank you very much. That was at the beginning as well, so it was at the very beginning, and I got a lot of work out of it, to be honest. but I meant what I said. Look, I meant what I said, and I still mean what I say. I don't agree in any of those divisive things, and in a way, I mean, I was right, and I don't know whether I'm glad to be right, but I'm glad that I was right, because at the end of the day, Black lives matter, just like everybody else's life matters. All lives matter. Right. Well, let me know what your thoughts are. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? Police officers are reportedly investigating serious crimes, including murders and rapes, from home. New hybrid working policies brought in by the pandemic are being used across the country, including in areas with some of the nation's highest crime rates. But critics of the plan say it is baffling the officers are now working from home, saying it would inhibit their ability to scrutinise leads and share their ideas with their colleagues. What do you think? I mean, they are the next in the long line of civil servants and bureaucrats working from home. I mean, the other day, well, I'll tell you the story after this, because for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police officers be allowed to work from home? Your email is gbviews@gbnews.uk, and you can also tweet at gbnews. I've got a poll up right now asking what your views are on there, saying, should police be allowed to work from home? So please cast that vote now. First, let's get an update with the weather.
Alex Deakin with your latest weather updates. It's looking drier and brighter for most tomorrow, but before we get there, the rest of today promises further heavy showers. Feels pretty cool as well if you're heading out tonight. Low pressure is in control of our weather, sitting way up to the north, but spiralling around it bands of showers. One in particular across parts of Scotland, crossing northern England this evening, providing some fairly heavy downpours, a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. That tends to scoot away. The showers a bit more scattered elsewhere. And it is turning drier through this evening. Most of us from midnight onwards will be dry with clear spells. We'll keep a few showers going in western Scotland. With those clear spells, temperatures will drop down maybe to single figures in a few places, but mostly double digits to start the weekend. A fine bright start then for most on Saturday morning. Quite a bit of sunshine around, certainly early on. Cloud will develop through the day, and there will be some showers, certainly across the Highlands of Scotland. A few come the afternoon for Northern Ireland, maybe even the odd one for Wales and Western England. But for most of England and Wales and much of eastern Scotland, it's going to be a dry and a bright day, and feeling a bit warmer than today as well. Maybe 20, possibly 21 across the southeast, and generally into the high teens for many locations. So as I said, feeling a little warmer during tomorrow. Still a few showers, and if anything, turning wetter through the evening across western Scotland. Perhaps a bit more rain heading into Northern Ireland as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning too. Sunday, again, a bit of a mishmash. There will be a lot of cloud around, certainly western areas, and it's here where there will at times be some showers. Certainly west coast of Wales, northwest England could be a little glum, more showers in the northwest. But again, large parts of the Midlands, eastern and southern England will be dry and fine on Sunday. And with a bit more sunshine, we could see a bit more warmth in the southeast, maybe 24 Celsius. For most places, though, we're again going to be in the high teens at best on Sunday.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So hello, good afternoon. It's just coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I'll be at home at that time. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so let's see what you've been saying with regards to Black Lives Matter. Julie says, I agree 100%. The Black Lives Matter group has actually made people racist. It felt like only black lives mattered, but really all lives matter. Hear, hear. Stewart says the black and white sheep that follow Black Lives Matter are condoning the violent behaviour, the arson and murder that BLM have been involved in, and now the massive theft and fraud that they have committed. Yeah. David says your stance on Black Lives Matter to all reasonable people was totally right, but it took strength and courage to put it out there. Taking the knee is yet another misjudgment from the Labour lefties and will stop Starmer ever being Prime Minister. Yeah, absolutely. Keep your thoughts coming. Love hearing from you. And thank you very much. I'm not having that. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? Now, police officers are the latest in the line of people working from home. The other day I was trying to call the CMS. Took 2 hours before anyone even answered it. So police officers, now they're working from home. They're apparently reportedly investigating serious crimes, which include things like murder, rape, and stuff like that. Now, there's been new hybrid working policies brought in by the pandemic, and they're still being used across the country, including in areas with some of the nation's highest crime rates. And the National Treasurer at the Police Federation, Simon Kempton, said that although many duties need to be done in person, there are some, like detectives, that are still working at home. Broadly speaking, it could be pretty much any sort of inquiry that could be done with a laptop or a phone. Yeah, but what about the privacy? What about GDPR, things like that? You're at home, who's around you, who's listening? You know, what about your own safety if you're working at home on a case or a crime and somebody finds out that it's you working on it? I'm not convinced. A government source has said that it's baffling, I'm baffled, that police officers are working from home, saying it would inhibit their ability to scrutinise leads and share ideas with colleagues. So what do you think? Should police officers be allowed to do this? Or do you think that they should be left to sort of go out there in the field to make a difference? So get in touch. Our Great British Debate, I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? So let's have a chat now, because I'm joined by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire, Donna Jones. Donna, thank you so much for joining me. So just to clarify this whole situation with the working from home, what kind of duties is it that the police would be doing if they were working from home?
Well, first of all, give you my position on this, is that all police officers
particularly frontline operational police officers in Hampshire are not working from home. They are working from police stations, from police cars. They are out on duty exactly as you would expect them to be. Over the pandemic, because of the social distancing requirements in buildings, public buildings, as well as police stations, some people like IT support and other support services, HR, for example, were working from home. But I can assure you, frontline cops were on duty. They were not working from home. And as Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, my expectation of the Chief Constable is that those cops are back to work. They're in police stations, they're in police buildings, and they're doing what they should be doing to serve members of the public.
As I understand it, though, from the article, some crimes or things like that have been investigated from home. And that worries me in terms of security. I mean, what's your view on that?
I think the article is taken out of context. I think it looks at data from last year and the year before. Where we are now, police officers are in their police stations, in police buildings, doing what they need to do. As I said, there may be some, I think there are definitely some HR and IT people that are allowed to work from home on a couple of days a week with the sign-off from their line manager. Fair enough. But operational cops need to be in police stations. They need to be talking to the CPS. They need to be sharing confidential data. They need to be talking to their colleagues about those investigations. Neighbourhood policing officers need to be sharing intelligence about where ASB is happening. You cannot be an operational police officer or supervising operational police officers if you are not in amongst them. So from my perspective, and my Chief Constable has not made me aware that any of our frontline cops are working from home. That is not happening. And, you know, from my perspective, British policing, they need people back in police stations doing what they need to do to make our communities safer than they are.
And in terms of, because you mentioned police stations, are there enough police stations these days? Because it doesn't seem like they're all bobbies on the beat even. It just seems as though the police force seem very hamstrung in terms of, first of all, not enough police stations, and also the fact that a lot of them aren't actually out there.
Nana, I think you make an excellent point. And no, there aren't enough police officers, and no, there aren't enough police stations that have a front desk, have somewhere where you can go in and speak to a police officer or a member of police staff if you have an issue. Not everyone wants to report crime online, and actually sometimes the call waiting for calling the 101, the non-emergency number, can be lengthy, particularly during peak times. So for me, opening up those front desks across the whole country is going to be key. Not selling off police stations in my own patch. When I became Commissioner last year, 5 police stations were on the market or sold subject to some kind of planning deal being achieved by the local council. I pulled the plug on one of those, Gosport Police Station, right there near the entrance to Portsmouth Harbour. I pulled the plug on that just last month and said, no, I'm not going to sell it. I want to open the front desk there. I'm doing the same with other operational police stations. In fact, I opened a new police station in Bitton in Southampton just 3 weeks ago as well, a new response and patrol base. But, you know, I'm not blaming police officers for this. I'm not blaming chief constables for this. They had to close police stations with a reduction in policing numbers during austerity. But last year and this year, and in fact an indication for the next 3 years because of the comprehensive spending review, we now know that our Home Office policing budgets will be going up year on year, particularly, as I say, this year and for the next 2 years as part of that 3-year CSR. So that is an opportunity now for me, as well as the complement of the National Uplift Programme, with those 20,000 extra police officers, 2/3 of whom have now been recruited. We're over the 15,000 mark now, and the remainder of those 5,000 to be recruited and in post by the end of March of 23 means we're going to need more police desks, lockers, operational police space. So I think the public can and should expect to see more police stations and more front desks reopening. In my own force, it was 498 extra cops. That was our share of the 20,000 nationally. I've pledged 600 as a new commissioner, so I went 102 above what I needed to do. But I actually think operationally, we probably need to get to 1,000. That would be the minimum that I'd be happy with. But year on year, it needs to grow as the population grows. Policing is not rocket science. It's very much a numbers game. More officers, more detection and more prevention.
Well, just very, very quickly, because the articles, the lady called Zoe Wakefield, she's the chairman of the Hampshire Police Federation, said that hybrid working is likely to continue as an option for officers, having been a success in the force. So she's saying that, so it sounds to me like the force are working from home or a hybrid model. Is that not how it is?
Yeah, well, I think as she says that's what she's expecting and hoping for. You know, I have spoken to Zoe. I catch up with Zoe every month. In fact, I had my monthly catch up with her just at lunchtime today. And I know that there are lots of police officers who will want to do that. There are some specialists, for example, financial investigators, people who are investigating frauds, scams, those kind of online crimes. Very forensic job. You're pouring through bank accounts, you're pouring through statements, whether they're sat in a police station or whether or not they're sat at home in the quiet working. I think as long as it's agreed with their line manager, for those kind of people that are in specialist roles, perhaps if the chief constable feels strongly enough. But we do now have space in police stations. We don't have to comply with those COVID rules. So my preference, I've made a statement to my officer, to my staff that work for me. I'll be working from my office full time. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And that's exactly what police officers, particularly the frontline operational, those investigating serious crimes such as murders and rapes and, you know, serious violent stabbings, they should.
They wouldn't be working. But I just want to bring you very briefly in on something that you said. You said that people investigating fraud and things like that will be those who will be working from home. But surely that would be compromising online security in a sense that their PCs and things would be easy to access from their homes, and also their own safety and security of that information and things like GDPR. I mean, who's around them when that information is out there? That's just a concern I think people would have for even people on that level with investigating sensitive information in their own homes.
Well, I want to reiterate that my expectation is that police officers will be doing their sensitive work and their teamwork back in police stations. That is the bottom line. That is my expectation. If there are people working from home, they have to comply with GDPR regulations just the same as they would if they're in a police station. So if they're sat in a room in their house, if they're having a telephone conversation, they should make sure that nobody can overhear that. If they're looking at information, they should make sure that husband, wife, partner, lodger is not looking over their shoulder. These are basic things. Police officers operate this way if they're working on a train, if they're working in any other kind of public space. They're given very, very thorough training around how to manage very, very sensitive public information. And I'm not so worried about GDPR risks at all.
Well, it's really good to talk to you. I'm so glad that you came to sort of clear that up for us. But I would be myself personally concerned about that because, I mean, who would be able to police them in their own homes? But thank you so much, though, Donna, for coming to join me. That's Donna Jones. She's there from the Hampshire Police. She's the Hampshire Police and Crime Commissioner. Fabulous. Right, so you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue the great British debate. And this hour, I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, writer Christine Hamilton, and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. First, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, it's 4:33. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister insists he won't block names when Sue Gray's report into Downing Street parties is published. Her findings are expected next week. 126 fines were issued for breaches during lockdown. A man who attacked a commuter with a machete has been found guilty of attempted murder. Ricky Morgan hacked at James Porritt's hand while on the London Underground last summer as panicked passengers scrambled to get away. Mr. Porritt told jurors the attack was like a scene out of the sci-fi film Terminator. Celebrity chef Jamie Oliver's led a protest at Downing Street over a delay in new junk food laws. An overhaul to buy one, get one free promotions in supermarkets was due to go ahead this year, but has been pushed back to October 2023. The Prime Minister justified the delay, saying consumers need to be supported through the cost of living crisis.
There are some things at the moment where we think they make very little difference to obesity, and they can affect people's weekly outgoings, people's budgets. And at this particular time, if people can save on their food bills with some offers, then I think we've just got to be flexible whilst continuing to tackle obesity.
11 new cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in the UK, taking the total to 20. The Health Secretary says he's updated G7 health ministers on what's known about the spread of the virus. Sajid Javid says most cases are mild and that the UK has secured vaccines effective against the disease. Ukraine's Azov regiment says a military command has been issued to stop defending the city of Mariupol. The volunteer brigade, affiliated with the far right, says civilians and heavily wounded defenders have been evacuated from the city's Azovstal steel plant and that bodies are still being removed. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Stay with us. Nana will be back in just a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's just gone 38 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should police be allowed to work from home? Police officers are reportedly investigating serious crimes, including murders and rape, from home. New hybrid working policies brought in by the pandemic are being used across the country, and that is across some of the nation's highest crime rates. I mean, Hampshire police, I think they're 7th from the bottom or 7th from the top in terms of how bad they are. But she was fabulous, wasn't she? She's a very inspirational woman, actually, as I spoke to their commissioner. Her name was Donna Jones. She was very inspirational, so I have a lot of trust in her. But the point is that the National Treasurer at the Police Federation, Simon Kempton, has said this, that although many duties need to be done in person, there are some, like detectives, that are still working from home. Broadly speaking, it could be pretty much any sort of inquiry that could be done with a laptop or a phone. But a government source has said that it is baffling that officers are working at home, saying it would inhibit their ability to scrutinise leads and share ideas with colleagues. So what do you think? Should police officers be allowed to operate out of their front rooms, or do you think that they have to be in the field to make a difference? So this is it for our Great British Debate. I'm asking, should police officers be allowed to work from home? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by writer Christine Hamilton and broadcaster and political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Right, so Christine, working from home, she was quite a robust lady, as in her she was strong. You wouldn't want to mess with her.
No, you certainly wouldn't want to mess with her. I'd step right out of the ring if she came in. She's the first crime commissioner, police and crime commissioner, in which I have ever had any faith. All the other ones I've seen on the television, I thought, this is just ludicrous. This is just jobs for the boys. But I thought she was very impressive. Of course, some things can be done from home, and of course, some things. But what worries me is two constabularies, Durham Constabulary. We all know what they're busy doing.
Oh yes, party busy.
They said, this is what worries me. They said, quote, that it has improved the work-life balance and overall well-being for staff, and will therefore remain. Their job is not the well-being of their staff. Their primary job is to cut crime. And the other one, Zoe Wakefield, you mentioned her earlier, the Hampshire Police Federation, she also said it's definitely positive positive for officers' work-life balance. If you can have some days when you know you don't need to worry about fighting traffic, never mind fighting crime, you can probably have, she said this, you can probably have a few more cups of tea during the day than you do normally, and it's a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. That's what worries me about it, is quotes like that. Of course some people can work from home. Obviously they can. I mean, as David said earlier, if you're investigating something on Twitter, some sort of Twitter thing, of course you can do it from home. But it's that mindset that those two quotes indicate, that it's all about the well-being of the police. Of course that's important, but the most important thing is fighting crime. And everybody, where are the bobbies on the beat? We're just talking during the break. David, so...
Well, in fact, I think that's part of the problem. I think they're spending too much time policing tweets and not actually dealing with crime. It's doing the sort of things you can do on your laptop instead of getting out there on the streets. It was funny seeing Police and Crime Commissioner from Hampshire, actually from Portsmouth, which is my old stomping ground from my early journalism days. And I remember us actually running a campaign to have more bobbies on the beat. Not that it went very far. And and I have to question some of the things she said as well, because, and she trots out, because of course she's a Conservative, but she trots out the line that there's 20,000 extra police officers coming in. That's not true. They are restoring the police officer numbers which were cut. Yeah. And remember, the 20,000 who were cut were experienced veteran police officers, and now we're getting, 20,000 newbies in, which isn't a like-for-like replacement at all. I mean, it may well be down the line, as long as we don't have more cuts at some point. So,
well, you've got the community support officers as well, potentially being allowed to carry tasers. I mean, that worries me amazingly. I'm very concerned about that.
It's the sight of a policeman. There's been a study done that if you walk into a supermarket and there's a little notice that says, don't steal, as it were, that has a certain effect. If you walk into a supermarket and there's a big life-size cutout of a policeman looking at you, his eyes following as you come in, that has a much greater deterrent effect. It's the physical appearance of the police on the... That's what we need.
Well, the only place I actually see a live policeman is when I'm in Parliament. I mean, when I'm out in East London at home, you never see a policeman. I mean, just the other night, there were some kids smashing up one of the bus stops near my house, and obviously there was nobody to call. 101 doesn't work. You have to log something online, and 3 days later you get an email back. It's crazy.
Isn't this what the problem is? That the people are trying to, because of the pandemic, now people constantly keep using the excuse of COVID to allow themselves to be lackadaisical about the service that they're providing. And, even... OK, so certain elements of IT that can purely be done at home via the police force, fine. If that is somebody, I know somebody who does a sort of help desk type thing for the police. It doesn't need to be in the office. That makes sense to me. That's fine. But I'm concerned that, reading the article, and I mean, there has to be a level of truth to the article. You can't just write anything, although some of them seem to try. But you can't just write anything. And you have the words of Zoe speaking, specifically saying that certain elements of police officers will be allowed to do that. So they were actually saying two different things. And so I'm thinking, well, obviously, police officers, some of them are going to be working from home, doing some of the sort of admin. But I don't really think that's acceptable. I just don't think that's acceptable because of security as well.
Well, who's going to make the final decision as to who is able to work from home and who isn't? That's the key, isn't it? I mean,
anything you're investigating or discussing, you need to be able to discuss properly with colleagues. Zoom calls, we found this in journalism and other things, Zoom calls just don't replace actual being in a room with somebody.
Bouncing ideas off people.
Yeah, it's just not the same. I do wonder with Durham Police, if they're encouraging working from home, that's why they're taking so long with Keir Starmer's Beergate thing. 6 weeks seems a long time to spend on that.
Seems ridiculously long time.
I think there's some jobs that I don't think should be done from home, and I don't think that home life balance, whatever. I mean, I respect that it's nice if you can have that, but I couldn't just say, oh, do you mind? I'd say to my boss, can I just present today from my house because I've got my kids and. That's just not going to work. You've picked the job. You knew what the job was about. You can't, like, if you're a nurse or, a midwife, you can't say, I've got to work from home today, bring the baby to my house and we'll sort it out there. I mean, it's just not on.
But in fact, they do want to bring that in. They want to bring in a lot of online consulting with doctors, more and more and more, and with consultants, so they're not even going to see you when they start to tell you what's wrong with you. I think the whole lockdown COVID business has had a seriously adverse impact on people's attitude to work. That's the trouble.
It has, yeah.
Well, that's probably all that.
There is a danger in it for people because, in fact, you just mentioned the doctors thing. The more people are working from home, the more likely they are down the line to be replaced by artificial intelligence.
Well, they might do a slightly better job, though, unfortunately. This show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice to the show, their opportunity to be on board and tell us what they really think about what we're talking about. So this hour, I'm going to head over to Kingston upon Hull, to where are we? To hear from a B&B owner, Simon Kelsey. Simon, hello, welcome on board. Right, so what do you think? Should police officers, and I mean, in this article that we read, Zoe Wakefield, she's the chairman of the Hampshire Police Federation, she said hybrid working, so that's obviously a combination of both, is likely to continue as an option for officers, she says, having been a success in the force. So what do you think?
I just think it's bonkers. I mean, I agree with you, Nana. There are some jobs that you've got to be on the job to do. And there has been a creep over years in getting police off the beat. And everybody wants police on the beat. Police say, oh, we're not that effective on the beat, let's get in cars. So you only ever see one driving around, or if they come to an event or crime or whatever, there's suddenly 6 cars there. You think, where have all these policemen come from? Whereas often, I think, especially like in an area like Hull, an area like where we live, a high crime area, just having people walking along the street cuts the crime down. So if they want to work from home, that's great. If they then walk to work a couple of times a day, so we actually see them. But, I work from home. I love working from home. And I'd much rather be talking to you, drinking a cup of tea, than cleaning the toilets. And I think the police officers are the same. They're going to have a much happier time. They can catch up on their old Dixon of Dock Green and Z cars, call it staff training. I really think they should be at work. And like all of your panel have said, how can you have collaborative working when you're, watching Dixon of Dock Green with your cup of tea on your Zoom call? It just will not happen. No. So it's actually more erosion of the police force, and it's a shame.
Yeah. Simon, thank you so much for your thoughts. That's Simon Kelsey. He's a B&B owner. He's there in Hull. See, that's what he says. He thinks that, Christine. I mean, he's sort of agreeing with us. I'm trying to find somebody that doesn't agree and thinks that the police should have this sort of extra 10 minutes for a cup of tea, which is what she was saying.
Well, if there's anybody watching, ring in, do, if they disagree. I'm sure some of them are watching Z cars rather than Dixon of Dock Green. But that Dixon of Dock Green conjures up the image of what good old-fashioned policing used to be all about. And, of course, we've moved on since then, and it's a completely different day and era. But it is the visible presence of the police is a very, very strong deterrent, hence... I can't remember which supermarket it is. I think it's Morrison's. They have a big policeman, cut-out policeman, standing in the entrance. And he's smiling at you as you go in, but it's basically, I've got my eye on you. And I think it's that visible presence which is very, very important.
Yeah, well, let's see what you've been saying. Let's have a look at what your thoughts are. Noel says, it all depends on the work being done and the reasoning. It is not all day, every day either. Rick says interaction and team working is essential to policing as its presence on the street. Neither can be done if police officers are working from home. It's different for admin support staff, but those investigating crimes should be in the workplace or on the scene. That's what I think. And she was talking about on here as people investigating things, and I don't think they should be at home. Keith says, I'm an ex-cop. The idea of working from home is ridiculous. Bouncing ideas off others, getting word of mouth information from other officers is integral to investigations. Uniform CID squads all need the team ethic and dynamic to be successful. Keep all your thoughts coming. If you've just joined me, where have you been? It's coming up to 11 minutes to 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, after the break, should we be scared of monkeypox? With the number of cases growing, suddenly now it's at 20. I think yesterday it was at 9. The day before it was at 6. It's just jumping up exponentially, but sort of doubling itself gradually. What is the situation, and is it cause for concern? I'll be speaking to an NHS doctor to explain. But first, let's get an update with the weather.
Alex Deakin with your latest weather updates. It's looking drier and brighter for most tomorrow, but Before we get there, the rest of today promises further heavy showers. Feels pretty cool as well if you're heading out tonight. Low pressure is in control of our weather, sitting way up to the north, but spiralling around it bands of showers. One in particular across parts of Scotland, crossing northern England this evening, providing some fairly heavy downpours, a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. That tends to scoot away. The showers a bit more scattered elsewhere. And it is turning drier through this evening. Most of us from midnight onwards will be dry with clear spells. We'll keep a few showers going in western Scotland. With those clear spells, temperatures will drop down maybe to single figures in a few places, but mostly double digits to start the weekend. A fine bright start then for most on Saturday morning. Quite a bit of sunshine around, certainly early on. Cloud will develop through the day and there will be some showers, certainly across the Highlands of Scotland. A few come the afternoon for Northern Ireland, maybe even the odd one for Wales and Western England. But for most of England and Wales and much of eastern Scotland, it's going to be a dry and a bright day and feeling a bit warmer than today as well. Maybe 20, possibly 21 across the southeast and generally into the high teens for many locations. So as I said, feeling a little warmer during tomorrow. Still a few showers and if anything turning wetter through the evening across western Scotland, perhaps a bit more rain heading into Northern Ireland as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning too. Sunday, again, a bit of a mishmash. There will be a lot of cloud around, certainly western areas, and it's here where there will at times be some showers, certainly west coast of Wales, northwest England could be a little glum, more showers in the northwest. But again, large parts of the Midlands, eastern and southern England will be dry and fine on Sunday. And with a bit more sunshine, we could see a bit more warmth in the southeast, maybe 24 Celsius. For most places, though, we're again going to be in the high teens at best on Sunday.
Hello, I'm Alistair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alistair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, 20 cases of monkeypox, sounds horrible, doesn't it, have been identified in Britain, and experts are looking for the source of the infections and how it spread. Now, the most recent case here was reported on the 7th of May, with a patient having recently travelled to Nigeria. A week later, a further 2 patients were reported to be receiving treatment for it in London, and the number seems to be doubling every day. So far now, 20 Britons have been diagnosed with it. In response to this, the UK have been stocking up on thousands of monkeypox vaccines and treatments amid fears the current spate of cases is only the tip of the iceberg. So, should we be worried? Well, I'm joined in the studio by A&E doctor, Dr. Emeka
Okorocha.
I asked you, how do you say that? You gave me the first bit, you said Emeka. You never said the second bit, Okorocha.
My bad, everyone gets that.
Bit. Why did
Okorocha.
you do that? You did that on purpose.
Just to test
you sent me that. Right, so talk to me about monkeypox. It sounds horrible.
It sounds horrible, but then, OK, think chickenpox.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar in the way that we kind of just got used to chickenpox and we know how to treat it. So monkeypox is a new viral disease which we've kind of discovered. I think there was a case back in Nigeria in the 1970s. There were quite a few cases, and now it's kind of just come to Britain. And I'd actually heard about it from last year, but now, obviously, we're seeing cases develop. So us as doctors, we've obviously been primed in terms of information. We've obviously been primed in terms of information of what to do if we see cases of it. So we've warned people, if you're having feverish symptoms, such as viral symptoms, such as fever, arthralgia, so, muscle aches.
What's that?
Aches of the joints. So that's myalgia, ache of the muscles, arthralgia, ache of the joints. You're having headaches, fevers, and then you're developing a specific rash. So the way it starts is after the incubation period, which is the time in which you've been exposed to monkeypox. It's about 10 to 14 days.
Oh, right.
It's about 2 weeks,
Wow.
after you've been in contact with monkeypox to when you actually develop symptoms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the virus will replicate in the body and then actually start expressing symptoms. And that's when you get the vesicle-type rash, and this can develop into blisters, often around the hands, the feet, the face, and we warn people about the genitalia as well.
God.
It's not actually classified as a sexual transmitted disease. However, there have been notable cases in gay and bisexual men. So we've warned people of the LGBT community to kind of make sure they're checking for any unconcerning new suspected rash, as well as these symptoms, and then getting in touch with 111. It is a self-limiting disease, so it normally does clear with time by itself in about 3 to 4 weeks, and the treatment at the moment is symptomatic treatment. So it's basically just over-the-counter measures, but we're just making sure that people are aware, if they get a new concerning rash, what to do, so we can try and stop the spread.
So, do we know how it's transmitted?
Yeah, so at the moment, the transmission, like I said, we know that there's an element of sexual transmission, but it's mainly contact. So if you have monkeypox and you have rash and vesicles there, and then you touch me or I touch a piece of clothing you've worn and whatnot, that's the general spread. But we know the spread isn't as transmissible in terms of transmission. It's not as bad as COVID. However, like a virus, it's the same way. If you sneeze or cough and you have monkeypox, then I can catch it too. But the spread isn't as easy as something like COVID. That's why the case number is probably lower than what we would expect from a virus like that.
Or because the incubation period is 2 weeks, so a load of people could have all been in contact with each other.
It's true. That's the problem. That's the problem. So we've also warned people to make sure that they are still regularly washing their hands and using hygiene methods such as gelling and whatnot, and trying not to share too much in terms of clothing or anything they're contacting.
Do you know, the other day I actually shook someone's hand. I never do that. I just elbow. I'm going to stick with the elbow.
Still elbowing. You're going back to elbows.
One weakness, one moment of weakness. And
one moment of weakness, and then, hey, monkeypox. But yeah, so it's just about people being aware.
It's not likely to kill.
Well, I haven't seen any cases of death so far from monkeypox, but with anything, we don't know how the disease and the virus will progress. I mean, I was on television talking about COVID right at the beginning in February 2020, and at that point, it seemed quite mild then, so I don't want to say too much, touch wood, about monkeypox. But at the moment, the main thing is just identifying the cases so that we can keep on top of the disease in terms of contact, transmission. Like we've said, we have a number of different vaccines coming out now, and symptomatic treatment methods.
So this one doesn't sound too worrying, although slightly unsightly. Hopefully the things don't leave scars, because nobody wants those. What about this? There's this new sleep app. I know this is something a lot of people suffer with insomnia, which is not a great thing. Right?
Yeah, insomnia is huge in Britain, and the new app, Sleepio, is hopefully there to kind of replace sleeping pills. So a number of people, especially patients, will come to you and they want this kind of get-well-quick scheme, whereas, doctor, I want some sleeping pills now, I can't sleep. And, as a doctor, you're almost tempted to just, it's very easy in the consultation to be like, OK, you haven't been sleeping for this reason for this many weeks, cool. Have some Zolpidem, have some Zopiclone, you're good. And that will generally help your insomnia. But then when you talk about prescribing pills, it comes with all the rest of it. So dependence on drugs and, you know, the side effects of the headaches and the daytime drowsiness and the dizziness.
And the
so this,
organs,
yeah, exactly. And then the cost to the
thing.
NHS as well.
Yeah.
So this is supposed to save a bunch of money for the NHS and could benefit about 800,000 people, they're saying. It's £45 and it's a 6-week type program where it's basically behavioural analysis with your sleep to see your patterns of sleep and basically keeping a digital health sleep diary. With the NHS and a bunch of healthcare moving to the digital age, it could be really, really useful and help a lot of people get to sleep.
Interesting. Well, listen, Dr. Emeka Okorocha.
Okorocha, yeah, you got it.
Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, cheers.
Positive. Right, so let's see what your thoughts. Keep them coming. You're watching me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. It's just gone 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister insists he won't block names when Sue Gray's report into Downing Street parties is published. Her findings are expected next week. It's understood those impacted will be contacted and given a chance to respond before publication. Boris Johnson has vowed to shake up Number 10 after 126 fines were issued for breaches during lockdown. Brexit Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg says he doesn't believe people should resign.
The rules were as they were, but looking back at it, and I think this is a very important part for the inquiry to play, we need to think whether those laws that stop people comforting the dying were ever right. And I hope the inquiry will look at that in case we ever have another pandemic. How proportionate were the rules and how far should the state go in controlling what people do?
A man who attacked a commuter with a machete has been found guilty of attempted murder. Just a warning, the video you're about to see shows the moment of the attack and may be distressing to some viewers. 34-year-old Ricky Morgan launched an unprovoked attack on the London Underground last summer, hacking at James Porritt as panicked passengers scrambled to get away. Mr. Porritt, who suffered a severe injury to his hand, told jurors it was like a scene out of the sci-fi film Terminator. Celebrity chef Jamie Oliver's been leading a protest at Downing Street over the delay in new junk food laws. An overhaul to buy one, get one free promotions in supermarkets was due to go ahead in the autumn, but has been pushed back to October next year. Tesco and Sainsbury's say they're committed to the original government deadlines, but the Prime Minister says consumers need offers in these tough times.
There are some things at the moment where we think they make very little difference to obesity, and they can affect people's weekly outgoings, people's budgets. And at this particular time, if people can save on their food bills with some offers, then I think we've just got to be flexible whilst continuing to tackle obesity.
Well, Jamie Oliver says it's time for change.
This is fundamental, and it's for all your people listening. It's not about one thing here and one thing there. It's a bit annoying. Like, it's as profound as the smoking ban. It saves lives. It's about making young people do better, live longer, and be more productive.
11 new cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in the UK, taking the total to 20. The Health Secretary says he's updated G7 health ministers on what's known about the spread of the virus. Sajid Javid says most cases are mild and that the UK has secured vaccines effective against the disease. Monkeypox is usually found in West Africa, which is why outbreaks across the rest of the world have caused alarm. Ukraine's Azov regiment says it's been given a military command to stop defending the city of Mariupol. The volunteer brigade affiliated with the far right says civilians and heavily wounded defenders have been evacuated from the city's Azovstal steel plant and that dead bodies are still being removed. Moscow reports almost 2,000 Ukrainian fighters have now surrendered. Some of them have arrived in a Russian-controlled town near Donetsk. The Chancellor and his wife have made the Sunday Times rich list for the first time as Russian billionaires tumble down the rankings. Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy have been ranked at 222 on the list, with their joint £730 million fortune. The couple's finances have come under scrutiny in recent months. It was estimated Miss Murthy's non-dom status could have saved her £20 million in taxes. Events are taking place up and down the country for World Bee Day today. According to Friends of the Earth, 35 species of UK bees are under threat of extinction. GB News reporter Jeff Moody met up with apiarist Paul Andrews. He told us some plants, fruits and vegetables will disappear from our shelves if more isn't done to protect bees.
1 in 3 mouthful of foods that we eat depends on pollination, and bees are the principal pollinator.
So, quite literally, we would have no food?
You would have a very much reduced variety of food. You still have the wind to pollinate grain crops, but other than that, apples, tomatoes, fruits, all that type of thing would be gone.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon, this is GB News on TV, online and digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's writer Christine Hamilton and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Still to come. Each Friday at 5, we put a spotlight on something, a particular guest or a subject in my Feature Friday Focus. In a moment, I'll be speaking to somebody about the ongoing cladding crisis. Almost 5 years since the Grenfell disaster, thousands of people across the UK are still trapped in unsafe homes as the cladding crisis sees sales obviously plummet. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should people accused of rape be guaranteed anonymity? When the news broke that Conservative MP had been arrested on suspicion of indecent assault, sexual assault, rape, abuse of position of trust and misconduct in public office, naturally people began asking questions as to who it was. But some argue that with allegations of rape, if you treat the accused in the same way you treat the person who made the allegation, it will put off other victims coming forward. That is, i.e., keeping them anonymous. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? Email gbnews@gbviews.uk. I can't believe I said that right twice. Anonymity, don't try it 3 times. Or tweet me at GBNews. But I do want to read you a message that somebody sent me because I talked about Black Lives Matter at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. And I said that actually it should be all lives matter. So this is a message from Wayne. Wayne actually sent me quite a long email, so I think it's only fair to read. He said, "Hi, first time watching your show. Black Lives Matter should not have been imported from the US, where there is some serious historical racism. Your stance of all lives matter is commendable." Thank you very much, Wayne. "But this is as long as all lives are equal. And you know that they are not. Well, nothing is equal, as you know. My interpretation of taking the knee is to highlight racism here in the UK, where people are in denial that we are OK. If this form of protest gets up your nose, then suggest a better way that keeps the problem in the public eye. Easy to point without suggesting a better way, which is the criticism I have of you, Nana. Incidentally, your guest today isn't representative of the subject matter. Are you including me, Wayne? Because I think I'm representative. But can I just say, Wayne, just for your information, I actually have, for the last 8 years, lecture across schools all across the UK and across Europe, encouraging motivation, brain training, and also helping people with things like racism and teaching kids that colour doesn't matter and it's irrelevant. So I do that, and I've been doing that for 8 years to level the playing field. But it's interesting that you should make that assumption. Right, so we move on. It's been almost 5 years since the Grenfell disaster. Thousands of people across the UK are still trapped in unsafe homes as the cladding crisis sees sales plummet. Across England, almost 3,500 high-rise blocks have applied to the Building Safety Fund for money to remove dangerous cladding. GB News has learnt that only 7% of those blocks have been completed on just 26 buildings. Yes, just 26. So I ask, what more is being done? Well, I'm joined now by Conservative MP for Stevenage, Stephen McPartland. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me. Now, I want to ask you, because you're actually on the ground there and you're how are you finding it, actually tackling this crisis?
I think one of the things that we've done over the last 18 months, 2 years, is support a lot of the leaseholders who've been trapped inside this terrible building safety crisis. And I think we've now got the legislation in place. But when we were doing the legislation in the final stages of it a month or so ago, I made it very clear in my speech that, you know, this wasn't the end. This was actually only the very start. So, you know, it was the end of the rhetoric, and now we need to move forward to actually making these buildings safe. We've actually got millions of people still trapped in these buildings, and what we've got to do is get out there and actually ensure that the support's out there on the ground. There's about £10 billion of government money ready to go out and support, but we're going to go into the buildings that matter and make them safe.
Your audio is not great, so we're going to come back to you in a moment. We're going to try and sort of fix that, and we will come back to you. We also have somebody else that we can speak to, but we'll come to them soon. Let's quickly have a chat on my panel. I'm joined by Christine Hamilton and also David Maddox. I'm going to ask you, David, the cladding crisis. I mean, are you sort of up to speed with what's been going on? Because we're seeing a lot of people, the government have legislation, but nothing seems to be happening.
I think speed is the wrong word, isn't it? I mean, we had this appalling disaster at Grenfell. And, you know, for years, people have been trapped in this in these homes, unable to sell, unable to move on. And it's outrageous, really, that it should take so long.
Well, let's speak to somebody who is in that situation. We just spoke to Stephen McPartland. He'll be back. But I'm also joined by a leaseholder and campaigner for End Our Cladding Scandal, Paul Afshar. Now, Paul, you are in that situation. Talk to me about what's going on with you and what's happening at the moment.
Well, Nana, what I can say is it's still very much sleepless nights, I'm afraid. My building is clad. I found out about it 2 years ago. It's unsellable, and nothing has been done to really remediate any of that. The challenge, as far as I see it, is that whilst we've had strong and good words from the government and a little bit of progress, and that's not actually translated to action. It's not translated to action for people like me in terms of removing cladding on my flat. It's also not translated into action what the government's promised before. And I'll give you an example. The government said that there should be no buildings, no high-rise buildings with Grenfell-style cladding on, you know, ever. And just today we had a media report that there were 30, 40 or 50 potentially around the country. This is 5 years after Grenfell. It's just terrifying, to be honest.
So this basically means that you can't remortgage because obviously the bank might not, they won't let. So as soon as you come off your fixed rate or whatever it is, you're straight onto the standard variable rate. This is what I'm interpreting. You can't sell because nobody's going to buy it because they realise the situation you're in, and no other company would remortgage it either. How much longer is this going to take?
It's exactly that.
How much? What are they going to do? Talk to me. What's your building like? Is it above 11 feet or is it below 18 or what's?
You've actually hit on a very important point, Nana, which is the government rightly said that they were going to prioritise the highest rise buildings because, of course, they're the greatest risk. But buildings like mine, which are below 11 metres, so there's about 5 storeys in my building, were a secondary priority. So it's taken a long time for the government to get round to promising to do anything about it. Now, on the one hand, the government has said that we, leaseholders like me, won't have to pay, even if we live in buildings under 11 metres. But on the other hand, you know, we still have to face the daily kind of anxieties and stresses of living in an unsafe building, of being trapped there because, as you say, we can't remortgage, we can't sell because no bank will give them a mortgage. And of course, one of the worst things about this, apart from the sort of the potential danger of living in a flat like this, is that there's this constant sort of worry that any day soon a bill for tens of thousands of pounds will land on my doorstep and on my neighbours. And you know, if there's a neighbour next to me who's just had a young kid, they can't move because they can't sell the flat. They need to move because they've got a young kid, and they're potentially going to have to pay tens of thousands if the government doesn't get its act together.
I think it's ludicrous that the government would have even expected anyone to cough up for that when, at the time, the regulations that surrounded it were acceptable. Then they've changed the law so that the regulations are different, and now it no longer meets the requirements. You bought it in good faith. I don't see why you should pay for that. Look, stay there. I want to have a quick chat with Stephen McPartland because I want to come back to him on that particular question, because I'm amazed that even the government even thought that would be a good idea. Stephen, at the moment, some people are still in these buildings, obviously, and they're unable to sell. Nothing has been done. Only a handful have had any sort of remediation and work done. What are these people expected to do? Some of them are going to have to pay for security and things like that. Is that going to be covered as well?
So I think the difficulty is that I led the campaign with my colleague Royston Smith for 18 months, 2 years to support leaseholders. And we've got them over £10 billion of government support. We started off with next to nothing. To begin with, it was just cladding. We got them to extend it to internal and external fire safety defects. We also got a huge range of other measures. So, for example, we got the government to agree that even buildings under 11 metres, which were completely excluded, on the final day of the debate, we got them to agree that they'd agree to fix them on a case-by-case basis. There was lots and lots we did. We got them to put a limit on the amount that leaseholders would have to pay. So outside London, it'd be £10,000. And again, we pushed and said but that should exclude. Make sure that people don't have to pay that. They paid wake and watch costs that have come to £10,000 over the previous 5 to 10 years. So we've actually done a huge amount to try and support leaseholders all the way through. But as I said in the final day of the debate, this was the end of the rhetoric. This was the end of an 18-month, 2-year campaign. But what we need to do now is make our buildings safe. There's millions of people out there living in these buildings, and we have to very quickly get out there, identify which are the worst affected, and get them fixed as fast as possible. And, quite frankly, there's a lot of leaseholders living in buildings who are scared, who are concerned, and they're the people we tried to represent over those 2 years, because until they're told their building's safe, it's very clear that they're going to be very nervous about being in that building.
Why is it taking so long?
Again, we raised this all the way through. We're now 5 years after Grenfell. To be perfectly frank, it was a very difficult campaign. It shouldn't have taken up until us starting the campaign. That was nearly 3 years after Grenfell. And effectively, it's been a very, very long campaign. I don't think there was an understanding of how many people were affected. I don't think people understood it was a whole host of building defects. I think they just thought it was a bit of bad cladding. And I think trying to get that message across. I think also with COVID, it was very difficult because you had leaseholders who were being told it wasn't safe to go out to work, but then they had to stay home with their children in unsafe buildings. So they really felt incredibly affected, especially by mental health during this whole campaign. And, again, it was very difficult to get that across. But, we got to a situation where we got a new Secretary of State in place, Michael Gove, and he sat down with us. We thrashed out a whole variety of bits and pieces. He understood the detail. We were able to explain a lot of stuff to him. And, it's lots of things. It's not stopped. This is, as I say, this is only the end of the rhetoric we're going to deliver for people. So, even, 3-4 weeks ago, I was asking the Chancellor to ensure that people who, have had to move out for work reasons and move away won't have to pay stamp duty because it's technically a second home that they've had to leave behind. And he's looking at that. We've asked Michael Gove to compel lenders.
Your audio's making that funny noise again. But can I just suggest that when you do speak to them again, so speak to Michael Gove, can you suggest that he puts a time limit on the wait that people have to do? Because I think otherwise they should be compensated. I think there should be some sort of limit. And if it's not fixed by then the people waiting should be compensated in some way. Listen, Stephen, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That's Stephen McPartland. He's the Conservative MP for Stevenage. Let's go back to Paul Afshar. He's actually somebody who's living in one of those buildings with that dodgy cladding. You've heard what he said. Do you feel the support has been enough? There seems to be something out there and the government are listening. What more would you like them to do?
Good question, Nana. And look, you won't hear me say a bad word against Stephen McPartland because he has been assiduous in his campaigning. But as Stephen said, the current sort of public or government funds or government promises that are available amount to 10 billion. Parliament itself has talked about figures of 15 billion and upwards. So we definitely need to close that gap because there will be people who undoubtedly will still have to pay. But there are two further things, and I really liked your suggestion about putting a time limit on it because, we've got the problem promise of funding, we now need action. We need to help people in far worse off situations like me, but also people like me, in a programme of taking off this sort of dodgy, dangerous cladding off of our flats to free up our lives again, to allow us to get on with our lives. That'd be the first really big and powerful thing that could be done. The second is a lot of that funding is going to be coming from the developers, which is the right thing. So it should be people who cause this mess who have to pay, not people who bought in good faith like me. But I don't know that they've necessarily all coughed up just yet, I'm afraid. The promise may be there, but the money needs to actually be physically in the account in order for the government or them to pay.
Yeah, I would absolutely suggest a time limit, and then you should be compensating. The developers should pay the compensation if you have to wait any longer. That'll speed them up, no problem. Listen, Paul, it's really good to talk to you. That's Paul Afshar. He's putting up with an awful situation with the cladding. Let's hope that something is sorted. It's unbelievable, but he's from a campaign called End Cladding. Paul Afshar, thank you very much for talking to us. Coming up, it's the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should people accused of rape be guaranteed anonymity? When the news broke that a Conservative MP had been arrested on suspicion of indecent assault, sexual assault, rape, abuse of position of trust and misconduct in public office, naturally people began asking who it was. Some argue that with allegations of rape, if you treat the accused in the same way you treat the person who made the allegation, it will put off other victims from coming forward, and that is, of course, making both anonymous. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? First, though, let's get some weather.
Alex Deakin with your latest weather updates. It's looking drier and brighter for most tomorrow, but before we get there, the rest of today promises further heavy showers. Feels pretty cool as well if you're heading out tonight. Low pressure is in control of our weather, sitting way up to the north, but spiralling around it bands of showers. One in particular across parts of Scotland, crossing northern England this evening, providing some fairly heavy downpours, a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. That tends to scoot away. The showers a bit more scattered elsewhere. And it is turning drier through this evening. Most of us from midnight onwards will be dry with clear spells. We'll keep a few showers going in western Scotland. With those clear spells, temperatures will drop down maybe to single figures in a few places, but mostly double digits to start the weekend. A fine bright start then for most on Saturday morning. Quite a bit of sunshine around, certainly early on. Cloud will develop through the day and there will be some showers, certainly across the Highlands of Scotland. A few come the afternoon for Northern Ireland, maybe even the odd one for Wales and Western England. But for most of England and Wales and much of eastern Scotland, it's going to be a dry and a bright day and feeling a bit warmer than today as well. Maybe 20, possibly 21 across the southeast and generally into the high teens for many locations. So as I said, feeling a little warmer during tomorrow. Still a few showers and if anything turning wetter through the evening across western Scotland, perhaps a bit more rain heading into Northern Ireland as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning too. Sunday, again, a bit of a mishmash. There will be a lot of cloud around, certainly western areas, and it's here where there will at times be some showers, certainly west coast of Wales, northwest England could be a little glum, more showers in the northwest. But again, large parts of the Midlands, eastern and southern England will be dry and fine on Sunday. And with a bit more sunshine, we could see a bit more warmth in the southeast, maybe 24 Celsius. For most places, though, we're again going to be in the high teens at best on Sunday.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 25 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It is time now for our great British debate this hour, and I'm asking, should people accused of rape be guaranteed anonymity? Now, when the news broke that a Conservative MP had been arrested on suspicion of indecent assault, sexual assault, rape, abuse of position of trust and misconduct in public office, naturally, a lot of people started asking questions as to the identity of this person. And it has sparked a little bit of a wider debate on whether or not rumours are more damaging to an individual rather than public accusations of sexual assault. Some argue that with allegations of rape, if you treat the accused in the same way you treat the person who made the allegations, so that is, you allow them to remain anonymous, it will actually put up other victims of coming forward. So do you think people accused of rape should be given the same treatment as the accuser? Is naming no one really the best way forward? That is the question I'm asking for the Great British Debate. Should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? Right, I'm joined now by criminal barrister and former Tory MP, Jerry Hayes. Jerry, thank you very much for joining me. Right, I've got to ask you this then. What is the current ruling at the moment?
Current ruling at the moment is anyone who is a subject of a rape or a sexual offence has total anonymity.
Right.
But the person who's accused does not. But that is wrong, isn't it?
Well, I think personally it is.
Yes. My view, and I've said this for so many years, and I prosecute rape cases and I defend rape cases, that anyone who is accused of these sort of offences, as a matter of right, should not be having their name in front of the public, unless the police go to a judge and say, oh, come on, we could have a War Boys case and all the rest of it. Because whatever happens, can you imagine on set, just imagine if you were accused of something, you'd be dead. That's the end of your career. You have movie stars on set who are accused of things, who are eventually acquitted, but they're dead. That's the end of their career. That is wrong. That is not in the interest of justice.
Well, what about the reverse argument, which is that people say that when you name the person who's being accused, it can then bring others who may have had the same thing happen to them from this person, it gives them courage to step forward.
Well, that's a fair point. And that's why I say there should be a presumption that anyone who is accused of a sexual offence, not just rape, but a sexual offence, which is terrible. Yeah, it's a terrible thing to be accused of. They should have the right of anonymity.
Yeah, I couldn't say it.
I couldn't say it either. Yes, that's right. I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. They should be anonymous. They should be anonymous. I think that's probably the best way. But if the police go to a judge and say, well, it's a War Boys-like type of case, so let's bring the name forward, then the judge should decide.
But that doesn't seem fair. Because it's at the expense of the person who is not yet accused, and it's at their expense to try and see if other people come forward. If no one comes forward, you've exposed somebody, you've given them, they're going to be brutalised in the press or whatever it is, or their communities, and then it turns out they haven't done anything. But that doesn't change anything, does it?
Look, never mind MPs, never mind people in prominent life. Ordinary people will actually be destroyed, absolutely destroyed, but just by being accused of these offences. That is wrong.
Well, it gives power to somebody to make an allegation if they don't like it.
Well, they can make an allegation. Yes, of course it does. I see where you're coming from.
What I'm saying
yeah.
is it gives power
Yeah.
to somebody to abuse that situation.
Of course.
And although we don't like to, every time you hear it, people go, oh, people wouldn't do that. Nobody would do that.
Oh.
Yeah, but one person might do that, or two people will do that. Out of 100 people, maybe 10% of them would do that, which means that you have just destroyed 10% of people's lives for no apparent reason at all.
And the worst thing is it devalues those genuine people who have been raped, who come forward. That's one of the difficulties. Everyone says at the moment there's not enough convictions. Actually, there are. It's about the same. But the number of rape cases that come before the courts have gone right down. We need justice. We need fairness. You, if you'd been accused, your career would be destroyed.
Exactly. People can make
You
things
should
up.
be no different from anyone else. And an MP, well, appalling.
It is absolutely unbelievable, really, the behaviour of our politicians these days. But I mean, you know.
Oh no, I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't saying that at all.
But he's not being accused anyway, so.
Well, he has been.
We don't know who he is yet.
We don't know who he is, but he has been accused. But just by being accused, should your name go in front of the press? Well, of course it shouldn't go in front of the
No, it
press.
shouldn't go at all.
If you're charged, no, of course not.
Well,
if you are convicted or you plead guilty, of course it should. But no more than that. Your career is destroyed, whatever you do, just by the accusation. And that is wrong.
But what about the reverse argument, though? What else is there in the reverse argument that would preclude somebody from not being exposed? Because at the moment you'll say who you're accusing. But what is the other argument? Is there more than just? Is there anything more in the argument? Because they're saying that if you say the name, then everybody, if there's any other victims, then they'll come forward. Is there any other thing that would make it a good thing to do?
That's what I was suggesting earlier. And that is that there should be a presumption that someone who's accused of a sexual offence should not possibly have their name go before the public. But if the prosecutor, with the support of the police, says this could be a war boys type offence, more people could come forward, then let's do it. But let's let a judge do it. Let's not have the Daily Mail law report
But if the
sorting
judge
it out.
does it, then it doesn't come to the forefront, so nobody then knows.
Yes, they do, because we have transparency. Of course they do.
But so you actually think that I personally can't see the argument for naming the person before you've actually got a conviction or you've actually got.
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing.
But I'm trying to find an argument as to why. What is the reasoning? Why is it this way round? Why is it this way round then?
Because the law was changed a few years ago and I think it was totally wrong. The law was... I mean, you've got Christine sitting over...
To her in a moment.
Well, in a minute. I mean, she was accused of the most appalling things. And she should not have had her name go before the public debate. It was appalling, disgraceful and wrong.
Well, listen, Jerry, it's very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for talking to us. That's Jerry Hayes. He's a criminal barrister and former Conservative MP. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll be continuing the Great British Debate this hour and are asking, should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's 5:32. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister insists he won't block names when Sue Gray's report into Downing Street parties is published. Her findings are expected next week. 126 fines were issued for breaches during lockdown. A man who attacked a commuter with a machete has been found guilty of attempted murder. Just a warning, the video you're about to see shows the moment of the attack and may be distressing to some viewers. 34-year-old Ricky Morgan launched an unprovoked attack on the London Underground last summer, hacking at James Porritt as panicked passengers scrambled to get away. Mr. Porritt, who suffered a severe injury to his hand, told jurors it was like a scene out of the sci-fi film Terminator. Celebrity chef Jamie Oliver has led a protest at Downing Street over a delay in new junk food laws. An overhaul to buy one, get one free promotions in supermarkets was due to go ahead in the autumn, but has been pushed back to October next year. The Prime Minister justified the delay, saying consumers need to be supported through the cost of living crisis.
There are some things at the moment where we think they make very little difference to obesity, and they can affect people's weekly outgoings, people's budgets. And at this particular time, if people can save on their food bills with some offers, then I think we've just got to be flexible whilst continuing to tackle obesity.
11 new cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in the UK, taking the total to 20. The Health Secretary says he's updated G7 health ministers on what's known about the spread of the virus. Sajid Javid says most cases are mild and that the UK has secured vaccines effective against the disease. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Nana will be back in just a moment.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound is 1.248 to the dollar and 1.183 to the euro. And the price of gold currently stands at £1,474.39 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Minutes after 5 o'clock, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. So it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? When the news broke that the Conservative MP had been arrested on suspicion of indecent assault, sexual assault, rape, abuse of position of trust and misconduct in public office, naturally people began asking who on earth it is. This sparked a wider debate on whether or not the rumours are more damaging to an individual rather than publicly accusations of sexual assault. But some argue that by treating the accused the same as the accusers in rape cases, it will put off vulnerable victims from coming forward. So what do you think? Should people accused of rape be given the same treatment as the accuser, i.e. they aren't named? Well, what is the best way forward? That is our Great British Debate this hour. That is the question. Should the accused in rape cases be guaranteed anonymity? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by writer Christian Hamilton and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Right, so let's start with you, Christine, because I know there's a huge story behind. I mean, you have had this situation. So for those who don't know, tell us.
Well, it's a long story, but very, very briefly. In 2001, my husband and I were very, very publicly arrested by the Metropolitan Police and accused of rape. We had never even met the girl. The whole thing was a complete tissue of lies. So for people to say that false allegations don't happen, I mean, they jolly well do. I can name the girl because she sold her anonymity to the News of the World. She was Nadine Milroy Sloan. And the only reason I can say that is because Max Clifford brokered a deal for her with the News of the World. She got £50,000 for telling her story, which was a tissue of lies. So that's why I feel very passionately about this. But you were asking earlier about the people, what is the argument? People say you have to put the name out there so that other people who've been raped or whatever can come forward. I'm not going to name him, but let's take this current case. There is one accusation against this Member of Parliament, one. So everybody in Parliament knows who it is. The argument for putting the name out there is, first of all, it assumes that the person concerned is a sort of serial rapist, whereas the overwhelming majority of rapes are the people know each other. And it's usually one person's word against another. This is the main reason why not enough rape allegations come to court, because the CPS do not think that they can stand the case up necessarily, because, you know, he said this, she said that. It's usually man, woman. And they just think, who knows what went on? There are no witnesses. So, you know, it's very, very difficult. But it was in 1976 that the law was changed to give anonymity to the victims. And it is the only crime, and it is second only to murder, frankly, for being a heinous crime, gave anonymity to the victims. And I just think I don't actually agree with Jerry Hayes that all the way until they're charged, because I think, you know, justice has got to be seen to be done. And, you know, going right back to Magna Carta, it's two people facing each other in open court. So what I think should happen is that at least until they are charged. Now, at the moment, this Member of Parliament has not been charged. They're looking into it. I don't think he should have been banned from the parliamentary estate either. What's the Speaker? Who is he to say you are guilty? The presumption of innocence has been turned on its head in the case of rape. And if somebody cries rape, the automatic assumption, especially from the baying mob on social media and Twitterati, is, of course, he's guilty, he's guilty. They have no idea. None of us know whether he's innocent or guilty. I happen to know him and I don't believe a word of it, but that's just, you know. Nobody knows what exactly went on, and somebody needs to tease out the facts, and that is the police, etc. So if he's not charged, there is absolutely no reason why anybody should ever know his name. And I'm a member of something called FAIR, which is FAIR, the Falsely Accused Individuals for Reform. And what we are campaigning for, and when I say we, it's not just little old me, it's Cliff Richard, it's Paul Gambaccini, it's Michael Grade, it's a lot of people who have been, Michael Grade hasn't, falsely accused. Cliff Richard is perhaps our most well-known person. And the main thing we're campaigning for is that individuals who are accused should have anonymity until they're charged. And Jerry Hayes mentioned that decision should not be the media, the Daily Mail. It should be a judge who should weigh the evidence to say, is there a public interest in this person's name being charged? Is there any possibility, suggestion or thought that there might be other victims? Now, in the case of this MP, I don't think there is. So why should he be named? He hasn't even been charged. It's grotesque. And that stain, let's assume he comes out innocent, which at the moment he is. Everybody is innocent unless proven guilty. He will carry that stain forever. And there was another very high-profile case of another very senior Member of Parliament. I'm not going to name him, but anybody will know who he is. Very high-placed individual who had similar allegations, and he was totally vindicated and cleared. And that guy went through hell.
Absolutely.
Because some vicious person decided to make a false allegation.
Well, I think it should be actually a crime to say somebody's name or accuse somebody or to spread the rumour that somebody's done that. I think that itself should be a crime. But David?
So I'm afraid I'm going to slightly disagree. I don't think it's possible to actually keep anonymity of suspects. It was interesting within minutes of the press release about this Tory MP that names were already going on Twitter. I mean, various MPs were being defamed, I noticed, because a lot of people were putting the wrong names up there. It's interesting enough, I'd be surprised if many people in the press are actually naming the MP until and unless he's charged, and he hasn't been charged. The problem is, of course, that we assume guilt these days, that we don't, the final British tradition in the justice system that somebody is innocent until proven guilty. I personally don't think that anybody should have anonymity. I think we're going down the route slowly of secret trials. I don't think accusers should have anonymity. Certainly that would end the malicious complaints which are made. And, yes, OK, we start off with rape. We're going to end up with anonymity with murder cases and other criminal cases. And I think it's a slippery path.
I think you make a good point, actually, that I think that the person accusing should be exposed first, but then, as Christine, in the case with you, that person waived their right to anonymity in the first place anyway. So then there's an issue there that they're boldly going out and accusing someone. Then you'll make the assumption that the person they're accusing is actually guilty, wouldn't you? Let's quickly go to the Great British Voice and let's see what they think, because the show's nothing without you. Let's welcome our Great British Voice, your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. And this hour, where should we head to? Kidderminster, why not? Let's go there. Let's hear from the owner of a community interest company, John Reid. John, what is your stance on this?
Good afternoon, Nana. I am absolutely with Christine. I am old enough to remember what she went through all those years ago. And I'm also a regular visitor to prison. And so I meet these people that are locked away for these crimes. I personally believe that both sides of the argument, the accuser and the accused, should be anonymous until it's proven guilty. So I wouldn't even say that you'd be able to name them when they're charged, because at the point of being charged, they are still innocent. And the public won't make it so. Imagine if that person was living next door to you, and that you'd known them for the last 20 years, and you knew them as being a perfectly upright and normal person, and all of a sudden somebody's come along and accused them of rape or whatever it might be, of a sexual nature. Absolutely wrong. And also, Christine talked about the topic of wrongful accusations, and I believe they exist. I believe that not everybody that's locked up in prison is guilty. No. We have a system whereby the courts decide, quite reasonably so. But it's not a perfect system. Sometimes we're going to find guilty people innocent, and sometimes we're going to find innocent people guilty. But we've got to use the system that we've got. So I believe anonymity in sex crimes is absolutely fundamental, and that's the way it should be. It's not at the moment, but I think it should be.
John, thank you so much for your thoughts. That's John in Kidderminster. Thank you so much. Christine, briefly.
Well, I just want, picking up on something that John said, everybody, every right-minded person wants the same outcome. We all want the same outcome. We want no rapist to get away with it, and we don't want a single innocent person to be convicted. The difference is how we get there, and that is what it's all about. I mean, rape is a uniquely horrible crime. It really is, and that's why it is the only crime where the accuser gets anonymity. And, you know, if somebody has been horrendously raped, you can so understand why, if their name is going to be out there, they are going to be reluctant to come forward. Whether I would want to see anonymity for both parties all the way through to the end of the trial, that is a big step. I mean, in a way...
But that would be that would be an interesting...
Let's get halfway, so at least it's anonymity, at least until charged. Let's get that, and then maybe try and go further.
Well, Christine, it's really good to get your insight as well, especially after your personal experience, but I'm glad everything turned out OK in the end. Let's see what you've been saying. It must have been horrendous. Terry says he has been accused and arrested but not charged. There are no equitable grounds for naming him. Anthony says, in an ideal world, it would not even get reported until either a charge or a trial. There have been a number of acquitted people of fame in recent times who have ultimately unfairly been tainted. The police and accusers should be required to keep quiet. Let's see what Elliot says. He says, not just rape, but all serious crimes after someone is named in the media as being suspected of a particularly vile crime. Many people will recall the accusation long after they forget the guilt or innocence. To pin an eternal badge of shame on an innocent person is wrong. Well, listen, Thank you. Keep all your thoughts coming. But on the way, up is Jubes and Co. And Michelle is here to tell us what's in store. Michelle, hello. What's in store?
Hello, Nana. Happy Friday, everybody. Coming up on our show, we'll be looking at pandemic. You know, if we have another one, who should be responsible for determining how we in this country deal with it? Should it be us, the UK, or should it be the World Health Organization? Of course, they are unelected. We'll be looking at that. And also, many in the world of football have got themselves in a bit of a tiz over a footballer that refused to wear a shirt with the rainbow markings on the back of it. And it got me thinking, why do we celebrate pretty much all forms of diversity, but not diversity of thought? And what are all these campaigns about? You know, I'm all for celebrating and all the rest of it, but why are we almost forcing people to conform or else? And Iceland, the shop, not the place, it'll be giving discounts now to the over 60s. And I'm wondering, is this the start of things to come, Nana? Are we going to see more businesses helping out in these tough times? And by the way, on your debate that you've just been having, I've been listening to that with interest, Nana. Anyone that thinks that people like this should be named should ask themselves, how would they feel if someone made an allegation against them that wasn't true and their name was peppered everywhere? I would not like it, that's for sure.
For sure. Michelle, looking forward to that. That's on the way. Tubes and Co. in about 10 minutes' time. Thank you so much. Right now, it's time for my quick-fire debates, the part of the show where we discuss some of the day's other stories. Joining me today is writer Christine Hamilton and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. Right, so let's see. First up, chef and campaigner Jamie Oliver. I mean, we saw the pictures of him. He's protesting outside Number 10 today in a bid to undo the Prime Minister's U-turn on curbing childhood obesity. The Star took to Instagram earlier this week. He was urging parents, teachers and campaigners to bring Eton Mess to Downing Street and hold them up in solidarity at the dessert as it was invented at Eton School, where the Prime Minister attended. The outrage comes after the government decided to delay a ban on junk food TV adverts before 9 o'clock. The buy one, get one free deals, in particular in supermarkets. So is Jamie Oliver a hero or a villain, especially with the ongoing cost of living crisis? Is he fighting a losing battle? What do you think, David?
It's all nanny state nonsense. You know, they shouldn't have just delayed or postponed this thing. They should have just scrapped the whole idea. It's just, you know, it's more money out of people's pockets in the end. And, you know, who are people like Jamie Oliver and the authorities to tell us what we can and cannot eat? It's nonsense.
He's just promoting his restaurants because they're all shut down, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's certainly not a hero, but he's not a villain either. That's not fair. He does a lot of useful campaigning, trying to get people to cook properly and eat properly. So, you know, he believes in it all. But no, I'm afraid I completely agree with you that the government should stick their nose out of our business. I mean, if people want to buy all this rubbish food, let them do it. It is not for the government to nanny state people in that way. I know obesity is a serious battle and it's getting out of control, but we should try other means. But no, poor Jamie, he's just doing what he thinks is right.
No, he's out there trying to help to promote his restaurants.
He's trying to help.
No, he's trying to promote his restaurants because they've all shut down.
I think it's too late now to promote his restaurant. I'm rushing to Iceland anyway. As I'm well over 60, I'm going to get a discount, I gather.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sick and tired. They shouldn't be... Look, I run a fitness business. I've worked with people who are overweight, people who are obese, people who are slim. You can't... there are internal issues that make people buy these things. They're nothing to do, usually, with the food itself. There'll be something in their mindset that is making them buy
It's not only junk
and doing
food.
that. And until you address that, forget buy one, get one free. They'll still buy it. It doesn't make any difference. At a more expensive price, you're not helping. Right. Also today, let's have a look. 8 new cities have been named for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, with at least one in every nation making the cut. Milton Keynes in England, Dunfermline in Scotland, Bangor in Northern Ireland and Wrexham in Wales. They all get the title. Stanley in the Falklands Islands also won city status, which was a first for any overseas territory. Did any of the lists on that list surprise you? Would you have chosen any other locations? Let's see, Christine, any places that you think should be awarded city status?
Well, I'm completely astonished at this whole thing. I mean, I thought a city had to be a pretty large thing with a cathedral or you know, at least a minster or something like that. I find it completely extraordinary. I don't want to pick out any because I'll offend all the people who live there. City of Stanley, I mean, in the Falkland Islands, it's not a city. It's a small town. I mean, it's not by any stretch of the imagination a city. I find it extraordinary. I don't know what criteria they've used. They say it's nothing to do with size, it's because they've earned it. So I think the definition of a city is changing, clearly.
There are small cities. St David's in Wales is virtually a village. Lovely place, by the way, just in case
but it
I'm
has
offending
got a
anybody.
magnificent cathedral.
It has. Ely,
Best
of course.
in the country.
Ely, of course, is another very small place. You know,
What about
you know, I mean, Stanley is the capital of the Falklands, and you know, what a great year to turn it into a city. 40th anniversary of the Falklands, and you know, I think it's a great idea.
What about Holy Island, Berwick-upon-Tweed? I love it out there. Somewhere like that. That could be. Holy Island doesn't have. I don't think it has. It doesn't even have a police force, actually. To be honest with you. Right, this one really got to me. I thought this is fabulous. A footwear entrepreneur is going to be awarded $250,000 as a grant for Sustainability Fund to help him design and create an expandable shoe suitable for children. Now, he's a 38-year-old businesswoman, sorry. She got the idea after the birth of her daughter, and with the average young person needing new shoes every 4 months, the aim is to create a product that can expand by at least 3 half sizes, essentially doubling the lifetime use and reducing the amount that will end up in landfill. I love this, David. What do you think?
It's a great idea. I wish that had happened about 10 years ago when my son's feet were growing very quickly. But yeah,
it's terrifying, the cost of children's shoes.
It's
I'd love to have a
incredible.
look at one of the shoes. I mean, it's difficult to see how it's going to work.
I wonder if they could do it on adult shoes as well. I've got a couple that actually, when you get older, your feet don't get any bigger, do they? Really?
Oh yes, they do.
Do they?
Oh, just a bit. Oh yes, they do. They get kind of flatter and wider.
When does it start happening?
Oh, it depends. It won't happen to you, Nana.
It hasn't started happening to me yet. I've always had flat feet. They're literally rectangular.
But I mean, the children are so fashion conscious. Unless these shoes look reasonably, you know, groovy and trendy, these kids aren't going to wear them.
They might be awful. It might be, oh my God, he's wearing the expandable shoes. It'd be like wearing plimsolls. Do you think it's a step in the right direction? Boom, boom, do you get it? Well, listen, on today's show, we've been asking, should police be allowed to work from home? According to our Twitter poll, guess the percentage. 11% of you said yes. Overwhelmingly, 89% of you said absolutely not. Wonderful stuff. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure, as ever. I'm going to say a big thank you to my fabulous panel. Thank you so much, Christine, writer Christine Hamilton, and also political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox. David, thank you so much for joining me. Now, remember, you can catch up on all of this show and everything else on GB News by downloading our GB News app, or why not follow us on YouTube. Thank you so much for you at home for joining me this afternoon. I'll be back again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Make sure you join me there. I'll leave you with the weather forecast.
Alex Deakin with your latest weather updates. It's looking drier and brighter for most tomorrow, but before we get there, the rest of today promises further heavy showers. Feels pretty cool as well if you're heading out tonight. Low pressure is in control of our weather, sitting way up to the north, but spiralling around it bands of showers. One in particular across parts of Scotland, crossing northern England this evening, providing some fairly heavy downpours, a lot of spray and surface